feel kind of like God.
And then this man with the devil on his hand came and took the hat.
Free Britney.
Free Britney.
Be careful. You never know. You might get dabbed to death.
Hello, Voodies. It's Nick Nobody Savage, and I am back with another episode of Dab to Death, the podcast where I do dabs and discuss the dark and deadly side of life. Following up on a previous episode, I think it was the last episode. I'm not sure if it was the last episode. It's been a while since I've posted, and I mean, who's surprised at this point? But following up on the episode about parents who cross the unthinkable line of taking their own children's lives, I thought that this week we would take a deeper look at one of those parents in particular. For those who listened to that episode, you know that we ended with the shocking tale of Chris Watts, who murdered his wife and children simply because he didn't want the strains of being a husband and father any longer, and would rather start a new life with the woman he was having an affair with. Even worse, he played the part of the concerned and loving father, the scared and forlorn husband, the entire time that the search for Shanann and their daughters took place. But before we get further into this story, let's take a look at what I'm dabbing on. So, got actually a little bit of a change of pace. I brought out some shatter. I know I usually just do the batters and stuff like that. I mean, I know every once in a while I do a good shatter, but we have a couple of strains here, and so I thought I'd feature them. You know, we've got the Gelato X Skittles or Gelato X Z. Sorry, don't know if you could read that. But it's coming in at a whopping 82.07% THC. And then we also have the Apple Tart Shatter. And that one will be coming in at a whopping 81.42%. So, I mean, honestly, 80% for a shatter is a pretty good percentage point. I mean, most shatters will test in like the 70 range just because it is cured material and it's trim. You know, it's basically you're taking trim and you're turning it into shatter. So, I mean, it's not too far to think that, you know, it's trim. It's not going to be the most THC potent. But, I mean, for these to come in the mid-8 or like low 80s, but still, it's pretty good for shatter. So we have to give it that. And then, of course, I have a couple of the batters that I've featured before. I have the Grass Valley OG, which is probably personally my favorite. I don't know if you can see this. I really should have set up the other camera for the dabs, but I mean, it has a really nice light coloration to it as far as a batter goes. Yeah, you can tell I've dipped into it a little bit, but that's, like I said, I've featured these before. They're not new. They're just really good. So the other one I have is the Fatso crossed with the Hindu Papaya, and that's also a live resin batter. A little bit more of like a wet batter consistency as opposed to the last one. Slightly darker coloration, but other than that, it's yummy. And then probably one of my favorites actually on this list is the Wilson Banana God. This phenos is amazing. Like when they were pheno hunting, like they really hit a fucking gold mine with this one. As you can tell, I've dabbed the fuck out of it, if you can tell at all, because I don't know how well that's gonna focus, but it's gonna fuck us up. No, I'm sorry, that was terrible. That was pretty bad. But sorry, hold on. Also, I thought I would do a little bit of a side-by-side comparison of a Paper Planes cart with a new brand. Well, I don't know if they're a new brand, but they're a new brand to me. Here's the packaging. It is High Rise, and the flavor is berry. And I find it interesting that they do advertise a 90% total THC on the packaging. If you're in the industry, you know that you don't want to put your potencies on your packaging because potencies change quite often. they're not always guaranteed, you know? So the first thing that this tells me when it says 90%, like guaranteed 90%, it's probably distillate. You know, a lot of brands will do this. It says it's a, what is it? It's a live, oh, it's a live cannabis cartridge, but a lot of brands will do that where they say it's live resin, but really it's distillate with live resin terps. I'm just calling it like I see it. If you're going to guarantee 90% and above, it's a distillate. That's the only way to do it. And looking at the actual test results, oh, look at that. 96% total cannabinoids. So yeah, Delta 9 THC 89. Oh, okay. So you're technically your Delta 9 THC is under 90%, but it's within the variance, so we'll let it slide. But I thought I would just do kind of like a little side-by-side comparison just to see how this tastes versus what I'm used to. Anyway, so I think it's time to do a quick little dab and then we'll jump into this fucking week's episode. I don't know why it had to be this fucking week's episode, but it is. So I think I'm actually going to start out with one of the shatters, and it's honestly probably the best looking out of the three. Oh, I only talked about two. It's the best looking out of the two. It's got a really nice light coloration. Here, let me see if I can just kind of bam. Woo, pretty. Anyway, so what I'm going to just do is try to, how stable? Oh, you're a little sticky. Okay, maybe I'll dab tool it. Again, hot knife, super useful, because watch. I mean, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing from here, but basically you just take your hot knife and push the button so it's warmed, and it'll slice right through a section of the shatter. And then you can do it again, and bam, you have a nice little section. Oh, that didn't. Here I am trying to give it a lesson, and I am failing. So let that be a lesson that you never know how it's gonna go. I don't know what that was, but Hootie and the Blowfish. Do y'all remember Hootie? Oh, okay. Some of y'all are gonna be way too young for this, but do y'all remember Hootie and the Blowfish? I'm gonna let that one sink in for a minute. I just remember like every Saturday morning when it was time to get up and do chores, I would wake up to the same house cleaning playlist of CDs that my mom would play. And Hootie and the Blowfish was up there. So I heard Darius Rucker many times growing up. Not knocking him, honestly. Like, good voice, decent looking man. But it's just like an ingrained like childhood thing where I just remember, like, honestly, I still do it where I put on music when I clean the house. And I think that's because of growing up, we always put on music when we were doing chores. But yeah, no, like Hootie and the Blowfish, Dave Matthews Band. Oh god, Dave Matthews Band. And then of course there was like all of the oh god, what was that one? Fiona Apple, I think. Yeah, Fiona Apple. Oh god, I'm aging myself so bad here. Anyway, I'm just gonna do this dab because we need to get into this episode and I need to stop feeling old. So here we go. Where the fuck's my carb cap? That's not my carb cap. What the fuck? Son of a bitch. Wow. This is not going as I had hoped. You know what? Improvise. Adapt. overcome. God damn. Oh, so I don't know if I mentioned which shatter that was, but it's the Gelato XZ. That is fucking tasty. Like I said, it's fucking trim. It's literally trim. And it tastes really good. I think I need to turn the temperature down a little bit, but other than that, goddamn. All right. Well. Also dabbing tip number 37. As you've noticed, I always keep Q-tips on hand so I can clean my dab rig or my banger in between each dab. I mean, dab rig upkeep is important. People, like, let's be honest, I've seen some fucking gnarly rigs. I've seen people who are like dabbing fucking moldy ass fucking reclaimed rigs and fucking dead flies in them and shit. It's not pretty. It's not. It's gross. Like, y'all need to take better care of your shit. I say as I'm dying. Oh, God. Whew. But anyway. So, where were we? Yes. Chris Watts, Shanann Watts, and the poor children who happen to be the victims of this murderous monster who wiped out his entire family. Family annihilators to me are just like such a fucking trip because, like, bro, that is your family. That is literally like the one group of people that you're supposed to protect the most. And you're just like, nah, it's fine. They're gone. I don't want them. Nobody wants them. Fuck them, right? Anyway, I get carried away a little bit. I think I am going to load. So I'm gonna load the Paper Planes card into the thing first, and then I'm just gonna kind of smoke on that throughout. And then I'll give my opinion at some point. But anyway, so before we talk about Chris Watts and the disturbing deed that he committed, let's take a look at the life of his wife, Shanann. Shanann Watts was born as Shanann Catherine Ruzick on Tuesday, January 10th, 1984 in Passaic County, New Jersey, to Frank and Sandra Ruzick. Ruchek? Sorry, it's Rzuceck. I'm assuming it's like a Rushtek or a Ruzek or something like that. Not great with names, as we all know. So she also had a brother named Frankie. She grew up in Moore County of North Carolina, where she attended Pinecrest High School in Southern Pines and graduated in 2003. Before meeting Chris, Shanann was married to a man named Leonard King. The two were married around 2002-2003, but the marriage didn't work out despite their attempts at marriage counseling. Shanann and Leonard didn't have any children together, and the two were divorced in 2007 to 2008. According to an interview with a Colorado Bureau of Investigation agent, Leonard made it sound like Shanann had checked out of the marriage and did not seem interested in making things work. He says that it was very difficult for him and Shanann to engage in any beneficial conversations. She was never confrontational, but when they were home, they would just be in separate rooms, and she seemed very withdrawn from their relationship, which triggered the divorce. I mean, if you're literally like in different rooms all the time and you can't even be around each other, then yeah, that marriage isn't going fucking anywhere. And so yeah, you should get the fuck out. Sorry, buddy. Like, if y'all aren't feeling it, y'all aren't feeling it. And like, sorry, it's not a one-way street. Like, just because you're feeling it doesn't mean she's feeling it. If she wants out, she wants out. The fuck? It's just like stupid how he tries to like paint it in a bad way. Oh yeah, she was checked out. And it's like, okay, well, why? Why? Anyhow. Shanann documented a lot of her life on Facebook with post updates and videos of her day-to-day life. It was on Facebook that she first met Chris Watts in 2010, while she was going through a particularly difficult point in her life. She had just bought her first home and then was diagnosed with lupus. One day she received a friend request from Chris and she thought, oh, what the heck, I'm never going to meet him. If only she never had. So, who was Chris Watts? Chris was born as Christopher Lee Watts on Thursday, May 16th, 1985, in Spring Lake, North Carolina. His father's name is Ronnie Watts, and his mother's name is Cindy, and his sister is named Jamie Lynn Williams. Chris went to school at Pine Forest High School in North Carolina and graduated in 2003, where he was voted most likely to succeed. Which, if you ask me, is kind of like red flag number one, because those entitled people are the ones that are more likely to think they're entitled to murder. I don't know why I had to say it like that, but I did. I did. So, whatever. Fun fact, Chris is also a huge fan of Metallica and even Googled the lyrics to Battery by Metallica after he carried out the murders of his wife and daughters. So that's something. Yeah, something. Speaking of red flags, now for red flag number 2. Chris attended NASCAR college, which I didn't even know was a thing. And I'm guessing he couldn't quite hack it in NASCAR school because he eventually ended up working for Anadarko Petroleum as an oil field operator shortly before committing the murders. Anadarko, is that like Donnie Darko's cousin? We all know about Sam Darko. You know, if you know Donnie Darko, you know. If you don't, you should. But anyway. So, Chris and Shanann were married 2 years after the initial friend request on November 3rd, 2012 in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina. They had 2 daughters, Bella Marie Watts, born on December 17th, 2013, and Celeste Catherine, also known as Cece Watts, born on July 17th, 2015. Wow, both of them born on the 17th. That's kind of interesting. The family lived in a 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom house in Frederick, Colorado that they purchased in April 2013. And by all outward appearances, they had a happy and wholesome life. Videos that Shanann posted showed smiling faces and a loving family. But beneath the surface, there were financial troubles plaguing Chris and Shanann. In fact, they had to file for Chapter 7 bankruptcy in June 2015 with a total debt of $48,000. At the time of the deaths, the family found themselves in debt again for a total of $70,000. This is purely speculation, but a part of the reason for the rather rapid reaccumulation of debt may have been due to Shanann leaving her job as a human resources specialist at a children's hospital and became an independent representative for Lavelle, a company that sells Thrive health and wellness products, which just honestly screams pyramid scream to me, and we all usually know how those end up. Now, before we get into the timeline heading up to the tragic events that transpired, I think it's time for a dab break. Bruv, I just did a dab, did I not? Okay, maybe I'll just hit the pen. I'll hit the pen. So this is this is Rainbow Crush, and this is again Paper Planes, 77.12% THC. So this is from the cured resin cart line, and we'll see how it tastes. That sounded funny. Sorry, I heard something outside. Honestly, doesn't even taste like cured, because like I said, cured resin is trim. So it usually has a little bit more of that like dry, trimmy taste, but this is honestly really fresh. It almost kind of tastes like live resin, which is, and I'm not just being biased because I know, but I'm not. So it's got kind of almost a live resin taste to it because I can't really get any of that trimminess to it. So it's kind of nice. But we'll compare it to the high-rise berry cart in a minute and see how it does. All right. So let's take a look now at the timeline leading up to this terrible event. Early in 2018, Chris Watts got the job working at Anadarko Petroleum, which would end up playing a pivotal role in this story. On June 11th, 2018, Shanann surprised Chris with the news that they were expecting their third child, a son who they decided to name Nico Lee Watts. Less than a month later, Chris began an affair with a coworker named Nicole Kessinger, leading her to believe that his marriage was essentially over and that he was in the process of divorcing Shanann. The two would meet outside of work often, sometimes as many as 5 days a week. By the end of the month, he had told her that his divorce had been finalized, despite the fact that there was no divorce to be finalized. July 31st, Chris flies to join Shanann and the family on a family trip to North Carolina. Despite it being a family trip, Shanann forwards a friend text messages that showed there was a lot of tension in the relationship. Not to mention tension between Shanann and Chris's parents. On August 9th, 2018, Shanann leaves for a business trip to Arizona. After confiding to friends about her doubts with Chris, she texts a friend that she and Chris had their quote, best talk yet, before she left, and she even drafts a handwritten letter to Chris. This brings us to August 13th, 2018, when Shanann's friend, Nicole Atkinson, gives Shanann a ride to her home after the trip, dropping her off at about 1:48 in the morning. Unfortunately, this would be the last time that Shanann Watts would be seen alive. Hours later, at 5:15 a.m., Chris allegedly leaves for work after an, quote, emotional conversation with Shanann. By 1:40 p.m., Atkinson began to become concerned and contacted local police to report her missing after she had texted and called Shanann several times with no answer. Atkinson also knew that Shanann had a doctor's appointment for her pregnancy that morning that she never showed up for either, and that was not like her at all. Rather suspiciously, Chris Watts sends a text message to Nicole Kessinger telling her that his family is, quote, gone, claiming that his, quote, ex-wife had taken their daughters Bella Marie and Cece on a playdate and never returned. You know, it would be really interesting to know if this text message was like sent before or after Shanann was reported missing. Because if it was before, then like, bruv, come on. Like, nobody even knows they're missing yet, and you're just like, hey, my family's gone. Yeah, she took the kids. Don't know where she went. Something about a play date. Never saw her again. Nobody asked, bruv. Nobody asked. You're answering questions that have not been asked yet. And you know what that screams to me? Quilty. I mean guilty. Sorry. There's, what was it? Oh God, now I can't remember. Oh, now it's gonna drive me crazy. Okay, there was a show or like a movie or something where there was like a trial, and the foreman had to read the verdict, and it was like that one actor. He's like the big dude, and he's just like, "Your Honor, we the jury found the defendant guilty." And then he looks and he goes, "Oh, guilty." I fucked that up. I butchered it. Yeah, I know I did, but whatever. Moving right along. Bow. Anyway, so police show up at the Watts residence where they discover that Shanann's phone, keys, and purse have been left behind. Which, I mean, she wouldn't leave without all that. Like, come on, let's be honest. Let's be honest here. Like, if she was really taking the kids and leaving, like he claims, then she would have taken her fucking purse and her keys and like the shit she needs, you know? But anyway, so while this seems to punch a hole in his story that she yeah. While this seems to punch a hole in his story that she took the kids on a play date, Chris sticks by his narrative. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. Now, believe it or not, but this isn't strictly a true crime story. At one point when police are walking through the home with Chris, there is body cam footage from one of the officers where you can see the shadowy figure of a young child standing in one of the bedrooms before it vanishes into the room. While a lot of people dispute this footage, saying that perhaps it was the child of a family friend or something of that sort, I don't quite believe this. Because it wouldn't make much sense for the police to let random children go walking around in what could potentially be a crime scene. Another weird clip that isn't discussed as much as the ghost kid is when an officer is looking around the living room and a light in an adjacent and empty room suddenly turns off. Is it possible that the spirits of Bella and Cece were trying to reach out to investigators, trying to warn them not to believe what their father was telling them? Well, I don't know about you, but at this point I could use a bit of a dab break because I mean, I'm creeped out by the fact that somebody could kill their wife and their children. I'm creeped out by the fact that the ghosts were trying to actively communicate to the cops that like, hey, this guy right here, like flashing neon sign, basically like bzz, 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 murderer, you know, something like bruv, come on. But anyway. No, okay, I guess I'm just being dramatic now. Okay, so, queso. I think it's time to do some live resin batter. I'm gonna go for the Grass Valley OG again. It's not, I mean, my favorite is the Wilson Banana God, but I'd say out of the three, this one's probably my second favorite. It's just got such a nice light color to it. Like it's almost, you would almost think it was like CRC or rosin or something like that, just because it's so light and pretty. But it has dried out quite a bit. I need to update my dab supply, apparently. But as I was saying, It's a really nice light color. It's really pretty. It smells good. It tastes good. It's just so nice. It's like so light, so it's just good. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just good. It is. Honestly, I don't even think I needed to turn down the temperature. It's just that last strain was a little. I mean, the last strain was shatter, so it's not out of the question that it would be a little different of a smoking experience, or at least a little harsher, but this is really good. I was supposed to have a new co-host here this week, or a new trial co-host here this week, so this dead space wouldn't be so dead. But some people are just unreliable, so you move on and you try again. If you really would like to be the co-host of Dab to Death, because honestly, I feel like the dynamic of the show would just do better with at least one co-host. We might be open to doing multiple co-hosts. I mean, hell, just look at Last Podcast on the Left, like one of my favorite podcasts, and there's 3 of them. So, but anyway, if you would be interested in being a co-host on Dab to Death, I mean, obviously it would be easier if you lived in or near the Sacramento, California area. But at the same time, I mean, Zoom is a thing, the technology exists. We can make it work. But, I mean, I've got space here for people. So, if you're interested, send a message to probably just the social medias at this point. Like, hit me up on Instagram, or probably just Instagram, really. So at Dab to Death Podcast on Instagram. I need to get back on track because I am losing my I'm losing my track here. Alright, so where were we? Of course, Chris didn't stop with simply trying to play the police. He appeared on the local news the next day pleading for his family's safe return. This is a direct quote from his speech. Shanann, Bella, Celeste, if you're out there, just come back. Like if somebody has her, just please bring her back. I need to see everyone again. This house is not complete without anybody here. Please bring them back. It wasn't long, however, before his story began to unravel and investigators began to learn the truth of what happened to Shanann and the 2 little girls. Suspicion first began to fall on Chris when neighbors pointed out his unusual behavior on the morning that his family went missing. They told investigators that he usually always had his truck parked on the street and would simply get in and go to work in the morning. However, this was not the case on August 13th. Instead, on this morning in particular, Chris had backed his truck up to the garage and loaded some things into his truck before leaving for work. He claimed that he was simply loading up some tools, but the timing really worked against him on this one. He really expected police to believe that the one day he happens to change his routine, the one day that he loads his tools into his truck, is the exact same day that his wife and children go missing. Bitch, please. Like, come on. It's just frustrating because, like, he really thought people were gonna believe that. You know, that people were just gonna buy every fucking word of his story, no matter how stupid and how shady and how out of place it sounded. Like, come on, dude. And then, actually, this didn't even come up. I had the notes done for this a while ago and never recorded it because, I mean, like I said, who's surprised at this point? I have a tendency to, slack a bit, delay a little bit. And like I said, take care of your mental health, people, because I'm not. Oh, sorry. Anyway. So yeah, I had these notes done a while ago. And apparently there was like a new development. I don't know if it's like super new, but it was on TikTok. Of fucking course it was on TikTok. Everything's on fucking TikTok. But anyway, so it's this thing on TikTok where I guess that new camera footage, like once it's been like, or at least like more analyzed camera footage from the neighbors' houses, has revealed that Chris Watts was not alone that morning, or at least does not appear to be alone that morning. And it's possible that Miss Nicole Kessinger might allegedly be the person in the video with Chris Watts disposing of the body of his wife and children. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get back into the actual story. Oh, I think I'm gonna try this, the berry cart finally too, because I need to get high to deal with this shit. I should put that on a shirt. I need to get high to deal with it. Ooh. Okay, so I'm pretty sure it's like I called it. It's distillate with live resin terps, maybe like super artificially flavored terps, maybe even. It's tasty. Don't get me wrong. It's super smooth, super tasty. As far as potency goes, obviously the high rise berry wins. But I think as far as the flavor goes, not even just the flavor, because if we were going off of like artificial flavoring, the berry would win. But if we're going off of cannabis plant flavor or smell, then sorry. That's one of the things I can say most about Paper Planes cartridges is that it smells like flower. Like if you're smoking this pen, it's not a discreet pen. It's not one where it's just like, oh, like I can blow it out and somebody will think it's a fucking vanilla caramel fucking nicotine vape or something like that. No, it's not. If you blow this out, people are gonna smell fucking weed. Because that's what it is. It's fucking weed. And I feel like more brands need to get back to doing fucking weed. Like, this is good. It's cheap. It's marketable because it was like 20 something dollars, But it's not weed. Like, I'm sorry, but it's a juice box. Like, it's a juice. This is a juice box. This is a cartridge. So now, where were we? Oh yes. The truth begins to come out. So you remember Chris's side piece, Nicole, who I literally was like just talking about? Well, after seeing the news story that break that Chris's pregnant wife, keyword here is wife, by the way, and his 2 daughters were missing, she went straight to the police department to tell them about their affair and all of the lies that he was telling her. But we'll circle back to Nicole in a moment. So, on August 15th, just 2 days after the disappearances of his family, Chris Watts, under growing scrutiny from investigators, agrees to submit to a polygraph test, which he obviously fails. After failing the test, Chris asked to speak to his father. Authorities were more than happy to grant his wish, especially considering that everything that they said would be recorded on their surveillance system. Breaking down in what we can only assume are fake tears, Chris begins to weave a whole different story to his father. Oh, his father, Ronnie. Yeah, good old Ronnie, man. He tells him that he had, in fact, killed Shanann, but only because he supposedly discovered that she had smothered their 2 daughters to death. I mean, I could understand it if she actually did, but that's not the case. So, getting back to the case. Investigators weren't buying this story and continued to apply pressure to Watts. After a grueling 6-hour interrogation, he finally cracked and confessed to what he had done and agreed to lead authorities to the site where he had dumped the bodies. He directed them to a specific job site at Anadarko Petroleum, labeling 2 oil wells as, quote, B and C. Bella and CC. Indicating where he stashed the bodies of his 2 daughters. Yeah. That's right. This sick son of a bitch dumped the lifeless bodies of his 2 little girls, who loved him and trusted him, into fucking oil wells. Like, what is wrong? Like, The next day, investigators went out to the job site where they recovered the bodies of Bella and Celeste from the wells, and the body of Shanann Watts buried in a shallow grave nearby, wrapped in a bedsheet. Just 1 week after his appearance on the news, where he pleaded for the return of his family, on August 21st, Chris Watts is charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder, plus 2 additional first-degree charges for victims being 12 or younger. Additionally, he was charged with the unlawful termination of a pregnancy, plus 3 counts of tampering with the body. The funeral for Shanann and her daughters was held on September 1st at Sacred Heart Catholic Church in Pinehurst, North Carolina. Luckily, the court case was a short one, and on November 6, 2018, Chris Watts pled guilty to all 9 counts, and, surprisingly, Shanann's family requested that the death penalty not be sought. Which is honestly pretty big of them, because, if I were in their shoes, I would want him to fucking fry. No, I mean, not that we do the electric chair anymore, but, still, just fucking bring it back. Just, Yeah. Anyway, but like, I mean, I can honestly understand like why they would give him the death penalty. So like, I get where they're coming from. Like, they want to be the bigger people. They don't like, he was technically a member of the family by marriage, but then he like severed that tie, in my opinion. But hey, what do I know? So on November 19th, Watts is sentenced to life imprisonment by Judge Marcelo Kopkow, who called the murder spree, quote, perhaps the most inhumane and vicious crime I have ever handled out of the thousands of cases that I have seen. Like, that's pretty fucking deep, dude. Like, a judge who's seen like thousands of cases, he's seen some shit. He has read some shit. He has heard some shit. And yet you had the audacity to be able to fucking cause some trauma to this motherfucker. Anyway. It's just fucked up. It's like, bruv, like, come on. So, Chris was sentenced to 5 life sentences without the possibility of parole, including 48 years for the unlawful termination of Shanann's pregnancy and 36 years for disposing of the bodies of his family. Watts was previously held at a Colorado correctional facility, but was transferred for safety reasons. Which, like, I'm sorry, but, like, let the bitch die. Like, I'm sorry, like, let's, like, Scott Peterson, like, like, if I were a prison guard and I were working at a prison with somebody like Scott Peterson or Chris Watts, and I heard him being jumped by a large number of inmates, or maybe if I heard him getting, like, butt raped by some fucking big guy named Sancho, I might let it just happen for like 10 to 15 minutes before I intervened. Not saying I wouldn't intervene because it's my job to, but I let him fucking have it. Just karma, bitch. Karma, chameleon. Anyway. Oh God, I've regressed. I've diverted from the point. Where was I? He has since been serving out his sentence at the Dodge Correctional Institution in Waupun, Wisconsin. Waupun. Anyway, I don't know. Sorry. Anyway, Waupun, Wisconsin, where he claims to have found God and feels remorse for what he has done. Gag me with a fucking crucifix. I'm so sick of these fucking bastards being like, oh my God, I found God in prison because, like, I just realized that what I was doing was so wrong. Number one, like, don't even get me started on the existence of God. But number two, no, you didn't find fucking God. You're full of shit. You're trying to get out on parole so you can do it again. Fuck finding God. He's not missing. The son of a bitch is supposedly everywhere. But anyway, I just offended a whole bunch of people. But you're probably not my demographic anyway, so, like, let's be honest here, it's not gonna happen. So it wasn't until February 18th, 2019, when Chris Watts finally came forward and revealed the details of the brutal murders to everyone. On the morning of August 13th, Chris had argued with Shanann about the separation and ending of their marriage. Chris had claimed that Shanann had gotten furious with him and threatened that he would never see the kids again. He then proceeded to strangle Shanann to death. While he was trying to bring his wife's body downstairs, he said Bella and Celeste woke up and came to ask him what is going on. Quote, "What's wrong with Mommy?" they asked. He then loaded the girls into his truck with their deceased mother's body and drove to the oil site where he worked. He then proceeded to smother his girls, starting with the youngest daughter Celeste, and threw her body into one of the oil tanks at the site. Just after this, Bella had asked him if he was going to do to her what he did to her sister. Chris started to smother Bella, who tried as hard as she could to fight back, but could obviously not stand against a grown man. Once she was deceased, he threw her body into the oil tank with her sister. Shanann's body was too big for him to put into the oil tank, so he disposed of Shanann's body by burying her in a shallow grave just feet away from the oil tanks where her daughters' bodies were laid. Sorry, but like, this is just fucking shit. Like, he is a garbage human being. Like, he's a fucking piece of shit, and I really hope he just fucking dies and rots in hell, like the deepest, darkest corners of hell. And at this point, I think I need a fucking dab. Because like, Jesus shit, fucking Christ. I deal with like a lot of dark shit on this show, and like, I normally am like pretty good about being able to like make light of it or crack jokes of it, because like, it's, you know, it's, you have to sometimes. And I don't mean to. If I've ever crossed a line, I don't mean to, but like, I just try to like make the lightest of the darkest situation as I can, you know. And like, this one's just fucked. Like, the little kids, like, bruv, they're little kids. Like, yeah, it's just, I'm sorry, but like, that's fucked. They're kids, bro. And they're your kids. It's not even like they were random people's kids. Like, I not saying I understand murderers that murder other people's children, but I'm just saying, like, the fact that you're able to murder your own wife and your own children and like not even show any fucking remorse for it, really, because you were just like on TV talking about like, oh my god, if anybody knows anything, please let me know, because like, I'm so concerned. I just want them back. You did it, you sick son of a bitch. Anyway, I'm trying not to get too digressed, because I do have to wrap this up semi-quickly, because I'm pretty sure I'm about to run out of room on my audio. So I'm just going to drop this big-ass bitch into here. And then we're just going to kind of smoke on that for the rest of the episode. Yeah? Okay, cool. Glad we agree. Well, that works. Okay, so the saddest part is... Ooh, that's a little... Yeah, that's the apple tart shatter, by the way. Whew. So the saddest part is that this series of decisions by Watts ensured that no one, let alone Chris, who was like claiming to fucking miss his daughters, would ever see like the daughters again. Like, so it's like bullshit. So like, what was he really hoping to accomplish there? And I mean, honestly, I say this was a series of decisions because it was. This wasn't like a split second decision in the heat of the moment. Like, it wasn't like at all. Even if he claims that it started that way in the argument with Shanann and all of this other stuff, he had so many opportunities not to take things that far. Instead, he decides to dispose of the bodies of his children, of his wife, of like in an oil field. Like an oil field, bruv. Like, you didn't even have the decency to give him a proper burial. Nothing. Like, what is wrong with you? And then to try to play the victim too. To be like, oh, I just want my wife and my children back, blah, blah, blah. No, you just wanted, oh, God. You just wanted to have the easy way out so you and your mistress could go live your lives together because you wanted nothing to do with having a family because you're a piece of shit. Anyway, my thoughts on the subject. Clearly. That one was not as good as the first. That's all I'm going to say. The first shatter, that is, you know. As I was saying, it was a lot of decisions. There was a lot of decisions that went into this, you know. Like, he decided to load his daughters into the truck with the body of their mother. He decided to drive them all the way out to the oil fields where he was working. He decided to smother his daughters one by one and dispose of them one by one into an oil tank. He decided to come back, go on the news, and act like he actually gave a fuck about his family's whereabouts. But like, honestly, like I have no sympathy for this piece of shit, like, at all. Like, and anybody who does is like delusional at this point, because like it's clear what fucking garbage this man is. Anyways, so you remember how we said we were going to circle back around to Nicole Kessinger? Let's do that, as I think I've had enough of talking about Chris Waste of Life Watts. Now, while most people believe that Nicole was simply a victim of Chris's lies and manipulation, there are those who question some aspects of her story. And again, this brings me back to the recently discovered footage of what could be Nicole Kessinger helping Chris Watts dispose of the bodies of his family members. So, Nicole claimed that she believed Chris to be at the end of the process of divorcing his wife. Yet, it was later revealed that she frequently visited Shanann's Facebook page, where there were clearly announcements of her pregnancy and videos of the happy family that he was supposedly no longer a part of. So, that's a bit strange. Stranger still was the fact that her cell phone data revealed that she was looking up wedding dresses on August 4th, less than a month after she and Chris had supposedly began their affair. Even stranger, Nicole and Chris had FaceTimed the morning of the murders, where Nicole mentions that Chris was lying on a bare mattress. Why would he be lying on a bare mattress? When the body of Shanann was found, it was wrapped in sheets, the bed sheets from the Watts family bed. The FaceTime in question lasted 111 minutes long. That's almost 2 fucking hours. Nicole was interviewed less than 72 hours later, however, was unable to remember what was talked about on the FaceTime call. So you're telling me that in a 2-hour FaceTime call, you don't remember a goddamn thing that was said on the night that his family was murdered? Go ahead, tell me more. This also raises several questions about the timeline here, because how early would he have had to FaceTime her for him to be in bed at his home instead of at the work site, which he left for at 5 o'clock in the morning? This means that Shanann was likely already dead during this FaceTime call. I wish I could say that the shenanigans stopped there, but they do not. The morning of the murders, a neighbor saw a truck similar to the one Nicole owned outside of the Watts' home. At that time, Nicole's phone pinged a tower in Frederick, Colorado, where the Watts family lived. Keep in mind that Kessinger lived in a town 25 minutes away. Surely you see where this is going by now, right? Like, come on, anybody can tell. And of course, Kessinger has no alibi for the morning of the murders either. Added to the fact that her phone places her in the same town that morning, and it surely starts to seem like she may have played a part in the murders, or at the very least, the cover-up of the murders. And now, for the icing on this fucked up cupcake, Kessinger attempted to destroy her phone's SIM card before giving her phone to investigators. She also deleted texts and photos with Chris, and her search history shows her looking up if the police can read her deleted messages. Because, I mean, that just screams, I've got nothing to hide, right? Like, come on, like, what the... Anyway, so despite all of this, it doesn't seem like authorities gave any of their focus on looking into whether Nicole was involved or not. They were satisfied simply to open and shut the case with a neat little bow that ensured Chris Watts spent the rest of his life in prison. Which I swear he fucking deserves to be there. Like, don't get me wrong, but like, she deserves to be in prison too. Because at this point, it's clear to me that she fucking did it. Or she had something to do with it. Like, I'm sorry, like, allegedly. But, like, come on. We all see where this is going. Anyway. In fact, as far as anyone knows, Nicole Kessinger went into witness protection and deleted all of her social media accounts in 2018 after all of this went down. Which is weird for someone who Googled how much Amber Fry's net worth was. And for those of you who might not remember, Amber Fry was Scott Peterson's mistress who cashed the fuck in on her affair with the man who murdered his pregnant wife. So you can see why that might be a little suspicious, right? Like, at all, maybe? So, did Nicole Kessinger have anything to do with the deaths of Shanann, Bella, and Celeste Watts? And little Nico Watts, let's not forget. Sadly, we will probably never find out. All I can say is that the circumstances seem pretty damn strange, and seem to paint the picture of two people who were willing to end the lives of a woman and her 3 children simply so they could run off into the sunset together and start a life free of his past responsibilities and commitments. But that's just my opinion. The only good thing to come out of this tale was that at least Chris Watts didn't get away with murder and will spend the rest of his life in prison, where I hope he is celled up with a big, strong man who makes him call him daddy. Well, that was the story of the Watts family murders. A story that sadly never should have had to be told. Family annihilators are such a despicable category of criminal, like I was saying earlier. Like, not that murdering anyone is right. But there's just something so disgusting about a person who can murder their entire family. Especially if it's because they simply no longer want a family. Like, divorce is an option. Like, there's legal options. There's ways out. You don't have to fucking kill anybody. It's just disgusting. It really is. But if you have any thoughts on this or any other episode, or if there's any stories that you really want me to cover, send them over to, actually, I don't know if the email address is active at this point, so just send them to Instagram, send them to Facebook, send them to all the social medias. Just make sure that you mention that it's a fan story or a fan submission, I guess. So you can send them in. Maybe if the email's active, you can send them into feedback@dabtodeath.com. But if not, simply drop a message to any of the socials at dabtodeath. Unless you're on Instagram, then it's at dabtodeathpodcast. Thank you for listening. So please rate and review and do all those things you do that keeps this podcast alive. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe And, maybe drop a couple of comments, tell me what you liked about the story, what you didn't like about the story, what you think about the piece of shit named Chris Watts, what you think. Do you think Nicole Kessinger was involved? Was she not? Was she just a victim in this story? I don't fucking think so, but let me know what you think. Drop a comment, drop a like, rate and review. Do what you do. Sorry, that was aggressive. Anyway, please be careful out there because you never know when you may get dabbed to death. Bye-bye.